You may start.
Okay, should we?
Hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all and everyone present here. Since we have audience all across globe, so I'm wishing in 3 dimensions, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I, Dr. Lata Rani Mutti, Professor of School of Management of University of Engineering and Management, extend a warm welcome to each one of you present here today to attend international webinar on trend analysis of investment of US firms in India and its determinants. I express a heartfelt thanks to Professor Said Malki, who has got a time for us to give away, to deliver a talk on important topic, that is trend analysis. It is indeed a topic which is requiring attention of everyone, especially during this COVID time, pandemic time. Certain investments, certain economies have shown a little less development. So I'm totally pleased to be able to welcome our Honorable Chancellor Sir, Professor Dr. Satyajit Chakrabarty, our Honorable Director Sir, possessor of magnificent personality, Professor Dr. Satyajit Chakrabarty, Honorable Vice Chancellor Sir, Professor Dr. Vishwajoy Chatterjee, whose invaluable support and motivation cannot be defined in words. I would like to extend a warm welcome to Professor Anirudh Mukherjee, Dean of our university, and Professor Pradeep Kumar Sharma ji, Registrar of our university. Before we start, I would just like to brief a bit contribution made by our university in form of achievements. We are ranked third in Rajasthan by Institution Innovation Council, IIC, Ministry of HRD, Government of India in 2020, above BITS Pilani and Rajasthan University. We are 4 times consecutive champions of Rajasthan by NPTEL exams, Ministry of Human Resource Development, Government of India. The highest salary offer at UEM Jaipur last year was 72 lakhs per annum. We have a great placement legacy, and we are here in this scenario from last 30 years. Now, briefing about our School of Management. We at School of Management believes in 3-level agenda. First, making a conducive classroom environment. Second, dissemination of knowledge. And third, the application of that knowledge. Apart from regular classroom training, here we offer the management education through innovative pedagogies like business case study sessions, summer and winter internship programs, research and value-added programs, such webinars and industrial talks. Now, I would like to request our Honorable Professor Dr. Vishwajoy Chatterjee to extend a warm welcome to our eminent speaker of the day, Professor Said Malki, sir. Sir, over to you.
So,
Yes,
welcome, Professor Said Malki. I will just take this opportunity to quickly give a very quick introduction of you. So, Professor Said Malki, he earned his PhD in Organization and Management. He's a Master of Science in Economics, an MBA. He has taught variety of courses in the United States and abroad relating to economics, finance, and business. At SUNY New Paltz, he has been teaching economics courses such as the history of economic thought, principle of macroeconomics, principle of microeconomics, economic development in the Middle East. He's also a faculty of Cambridge College in Boston, where he teaches finance courses in the Master of Science in Finance program. Dr. Malki participated in several trainings and workshops at the Federal Reserve Bank and N.Y.S.E, New York Stock Exchange. Furthermore, as a member of the N.Y.S E Business and Economics Association and the International Academy of Business and Public Administration Disciplines, he published many peer-reviewed articles relating to economics, finance, and management. He became certified in March 3, 2016 as Chartered Quality Professional by the Chartered Quality Institute, UK. Additionally, he is a member of American Society for Quantity and a member of the American Economic Association. Today, he will be talking on trend analysis of investments of US firms in India and its determinants. So over to you, Professor Said Malki. We are all eager to hear from you. From here on, it's all yours.
Okay, welcome everyone. I would like to thank you all for this opportunity to meet you and also to meet in this online environment students. I wish you all the best for your college, and I got the chance to go to the website, and I wish you all the best, and with respect to your strategic goals, your vision, and the mission. I'm glad to be here today. I don't want to, I mean, I had really was very happy to connect with Dr. Lata about the opportunities to develop research and specifically in this area of foreign direct investments. So I don't want this to be like very formal in terms of, just reading slides. So I want to just kind of have some form of chart in a way. So the way we want to do this is I will talk about the importance of foreign direct investments, and we'll just talk about the position of the United States foreign direct investments in India. First, I would like to, of course, we all know the strategic relations between my country, the United States of America, and India. Relations, economic relations, strategic relations in many areas, and also in the field of international security. So the relation between India and the United States are important. But once we're going to go through the patterns of foreign direct investment, I believe that there are rooms for more enhancement, or of course more rooms to increase foreign direct investments of United States in India. This is a good news for businesses in terms of know-how, in terms of knowledge, but also it's important for GDP growth in India. I find this article here. I don't know if Dr. Lata, can you see my screen?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We all
can
are
all
able
see
to
your
see
screen.
your screen.
Yeah, excellent. Basically, thank you, sir. Professor. So in terms of I find this important element interesting to share. So according to the UNCTAD 2020 World Report, this very important report, the FDI inflows hit in all high US 51 billions in 2019, an increase of 20% if compared to 2018. If the stock reached US dollar, in terms of US dollars, 427 billions in 2017, which represents a rise of more than 220 billions US dollars when compared to 2020. So it is an increase, but overall, when we look into the flow, I want to just explain here that for students, of course, many students they could be more familiar to this topic, FDI, but it's very important for students to understand the difference between a flow and stock. Like in this data that's in front of us right here, foreign direct investments. First, what is foreign? When we talk about foreign direct investment, we're talking about investment in plants, machines, machinery. It's a company that moves to another host country, often multinational company, and starts hiring, starts investing in machinery, and so this is important in terms of the formation of fixed capital of the nation, but also this is a physical investment, not to confuse or not to, because clearly there is a difference between portfolio investment and foreign direct investment. Foreign direct investment, for portfolio investment, it is about buying stocks, bonds, and I don't have to move to India. I don't have to go there and hire, or I don't have to move my workforce. I don't have to. That's portfolio investment. Here, foreign direct investment I believe, has a tremendous multiplier effects on the economy. So, you are like in 2017. You can see here the figures, and this is in million of US dollars in 2017. 39,904. Of course, this is in million of US dollars. you can see the change into 2019. This is a flow, but the stock, of course, it's more important. Why? The difference between a flow and stock is that the stock, it's the cumulative flow. So overall in 2019, this is the stock. You know, this is a cumulative of FDI throughout the previous years. That's an importance when it comes to doing research, to really be careful in terms of are we dealing with the flows, or are we dealing with stocks? Excuse me. So not stocks, stock of FDI. That said, the FDI, of course, it's very important when it comes to research. Because me and Dr. Lata, we will be exploring this important topic in the context of India, in terms of gathering data and looking about the trend of the U.S. investments in India, but also what is the potential to increase? What are the determinants of India? What are the opportunities in India? What are the strengths of the economy? Of course, India economy, it's an important economy in Asia. I have the honor and the privilege to visit India in the past, and it was a business trip, but it's lots of potential. So what are the strengths, what are the opportunities, but also what are the limitations? What can be improved in terms of policies, and also in terms of the governance system? I think we're going to get a chance to talk about that. So the bottom line is, once we assess the trend of the foreign direct investments in India, then we will ask the following question: what are the determinants of the such FDI, and what should be improved or enhanced in terms of policy to attract more foreign direct investments? I wanted to mention that when it comes to gathering data, it's very important to distinguish between inflows and outflows of foreign direct investments. And often it is important to look into the net foreign direct investments. So once I believe once we understand the difference between once we collect the information, and then we start analyzing, and also, as you can see in this table, the number of greenfield investments. So here clearly I can recall the last visit of our esteemed president, US president, to India. That was a very successful trip, and I think that it was also a part of the discussion. It was about sustainable development, the environment, and many of the aspects related to technology, on many aspects. So the relation is very diverse. But the idea is very important to also emphasize on greenfield investments. So this is a business college and also engineering. Clearly, it is not just about boosting growth, economic growth, but also to the environment, how to make sure that also we are dealing with pollution, and so the idea of green energy, sustainable development. So therefore, as you can see, they are identified here. So now, once we look at this, it is very important. What is the main takeaway here? Again, my goal here today is not to come up with final conclusions, because that is going to be the purpose of my paper with Dr. Lata about the future and the prospects. But we would like to kind of, since this learning environment, and glad to be here with you and with the students, esteemed colleagues, and with students, in terms of, once we look at the trend analysis, so how is the past, now the data between US FDI in India, it's very important to, in a way, it's possible to do a cross analysis, or I would say industry analysis, to look at the distribution of foreign direct investments per industry in India, to see which industry is attracting more US foreign direct investments, which industry is attracting less. And why is that important? Because in terms of policy, if India goal is, for instance, to develop more high-tech industries, of course, India has a competitive advantage in many sectors, such as computer science and others. But this is just an example. If this is the case, so to what extent we can attract? India policymakers can also set policy to attract. And so industry analysis, it's very important. As you can see in this table, I find this article very, very interesting. because in this table is also, it's the ranking of countries. So we do the industry analysis, trend analysis, and then trend analysis, industry analysis, and then we compare per country. Of course, you can go beyond 2019. You can see an average of the last 5 years, for instance. In this example, you can see the percentage. You can see Singapore at the top, and also you have Mauritius, you have Netherlands, you have Japan, and United States here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's in the 5th position. And also you can see here some information about the main invested sectors. As you can see, you have the service, the computer software, I just mentioned in few, telecommunication, trade. So this is an important. So what is to consider? It's the advantage of FDI in India. Why we need FDI in the first place? Because FDI, it's so important, not only in terms of financing projects, because we have money coming, because you have plants coming in, and then you have investments in the economy. So it's a part of the project of the country will be financed by foreign investors, but it does not stop there. It's also the hiring, there's also transfer of technology, is also strategic partnerships, know-how. When Indians learn from US investors, but also vice versa, US investors can also gain knowledge about the competencies and the technology and the competence and the skills in India. So strategic partnerships. Many other aspects that has to do with innovation and creativity. So there are many advantages here. I don't want to spend the time of the session to go through them, but I will be very happy to share this article with Dr. Lata. Of course, this is among many elements that we can utilize there in our research. So there are some advantages, many advantages, like for example, the importance, like for example here, deep-rooted and highly effective democratic regime which assures a calm and stable political environment. So when it comes to in India, it's a stable political system. India is often mentioned as one of the in terms of size, the biggest democracy in the world. You have a lot of parties, you have many religions, you have many ethnic backgrounds, but yet the country is stable politically. So that's very important, because any foreign investors will think twice before investing overseas in terms of when it comes to the risk, because the foreign direct investment is a project. So we look into the expected rate of return, but also the cost of capital. It's very important, but also the other type of risk. The risk is not, as you know, ladies and gentlemen, the risk is not just financial, right? It's also political, security risk, technology risk, etc. So that's an aspect that is so important. So I would say the stability, the skills also, it's a population that speaks fluent English. Because of the history of India, English is the language of science so far. And so there are many strengths, there are many aspects. So I would say in terms of policy, as you know, in terms of policy, when it comes to ask the following question, what can be improved? SWOT analysis, it's so important to say, okay, this is our strengths, these are our weaknesses, these are the opportunities, and what are the threats? What we mean by threats? For example, instead of the foreign investment to come to India to go, for example, to another country. That's the idea, you see, or to have some, that's the idea. So that's SWOT analysis, and then you come up with policies. Policies in a democracy like the Indian democracy, it is nothing called perfect. There are always room for improvements. This is the great things about democracy and debate, right? So what are the limitations? The infrastructure, and of course there's tremendous effort in terms of the lack of adequate infrastructure, slowing down the development of some places. The electricity issue, for example, I had the honor to meet many academics from the incredible India, beautiful country India, and they emphasize, for example, that some places they may have issues of electricity. So that's because it's a big country, it's important. It's sizable. The population, it's also big. So the idea of regionalization and the issues of electricity, for instance. So I'm not going here to go through all the aspects. Like I said, this is a project of research. So we're gonna assess when it comes to the determinants of foreign direct investment. What are the strengths? What are some the things that I would call them need? I don't like to use the word weakness, but I like to use the word need improvement. So that said, that's these sources, many sources here from the Ministry of Finance. I would say for students who he or she is developing a research paper about foreign direct investment, it's very important to diversify the sources of credibility. As you know, I'm glad to meet Dr. Lata and the esteemed professor in terms of the diversify the sources. I mean, credibility of a PhD dissertation. You know, I don't want to just. Of course, it's very important to refer to an official government agency or a ministry, but also in the meantime look into international resources. In this context, I would like to, or I would say also academic, right? In this context, you will want to note that there is. I'm glad that my screen is shared. So. I believe the audience, the esteemed audience, can still see my the World Bank has tremendous data and sources and tools. As you can see here, ladies and gentlemen, you can see the evolution of the dynamic of foreign direct investment since the 70s, the 90s, and what's happened here. You can see that somehow this is 2008, the famous great recession in the US, but also in many other countries. But still, somehow something happened here that it is a peak. So we're gonna definitely, Dr. Lata, ask a question: what's happened here? That despite it was a recession, right, in most industrialized nations, Western nations, what's happened here? That there is a peak here of the foreign direct investment. This is as percentage of GDP, right? So far so good, Dr. Lata. My audio is good. Hello?
You're absolutely audible, sir.
Okay, excellent. So indeed, so this is a net inflow. So I'm glad that I introduced what then we mean by net inflows. We are taking the inflows minus the outflows, right? So and as a percentage of GDP. So that's we can see an increase as percentage of GDP, and then you can see the dynamic and trend. So of course you can, for example, put here China. China, for example. China. And then you can get to compare China and India as a percentage of GDP. These are two competing nations. They're friend nations, I would say, but at the same time competing economically, right? So you will see, okay, right? Well, in terms of benchmarking, you look into the regions, which country is attracting more foreign direct investment, but also you can add here United States. That's China. That's United States. So in terms of percent of GDP, you can also just look for the FDI alone, and you can see the because many things we do as a percent of GDP, because GDP, it's important. It's a reflection of economic growth, right, and economic performance. All right, so that's the aspect that I wanted to share. Now, some patterns or some elements here that's about the India, as you can see, before even starting digging, I would say exploring this topic of FDI in US FDI in India. In this world data, you can get also an idea. I mean, data about GDP growth, population growth. It's a population 2019 estimated to almost 1.4 billion. So you have population growth, you have GDP growth. So we have this. Look at the progression and the growth of GDP, and of course, I don't tend to be a Malthusian. I mean, in terms of Malthus, and how it's very important to make sure that we examine the dynamic of GDP growth and population growth, as population growth that is going population growing based on geometric or exponential growth versus GDP arithmetic growth. But there are exceptions to the rule, because many countries, even China, you can see how even the biggest population in the world was able to become the country with the GDP number 2, rank 2, China, after United States. So population is, I really believe it is about the policies, it is about human capital development, and it is possible through policies, good effective policies, to ensure that human capital, its determinants are not a constraint when it comes to economic development. You can also look at education. You can see the schooling, because this constitutes a positive externality for foreign direct investment. You have students are, I mean, I would say, educated, speaking the language, multitasker, but also looking into the environment. Because while we keep talking about the environment, most of the companies, I would say, maybe all of them, I mean, when a multinational company is visionary, it does not seek only profits. As a matter of fact, FDI objectives goes beyond just beyond idea of just making a fast profit. It is about long term, and being socially responsible. It's very important. So social responsibility is also here in the US. We talk about a citizenship enterprise or citizenship company. It is not just, of course, it's very important for a company to pay taxes and to contribute, but also to be responsible when it comes to the environment, for instance. So again, ladies and gentlemen, life expectancy, a lot improvement in India. But I would say, for a student's perspective, from a research perspective, it is always important if you are exploring this concept here, GDP, population, life expectancy, it's very important to do comparative analysis. We always look into regional partnership, regional countries at the regional comparative approach at the regional level, also global level, and also you look into the benchmarks. In terms of business, it's like in business, you look into the best of the best. Also in terms of country, when it comes to policies about life expectancy, maybe you want to compare also India about what's happened in some Scandinavian nations. Of course, one size does not fit all, because countries, they have different population, level, they have different challenges, they have different productive capabilities. See, so I want to just also, as you can see, Dr. Lada, I want this to be some form of also tools and potentially research and resources that can be useful for students. Here at the United States, in our great nation here in the US, we have the Bureau of Economic Analysis, the Bureau of Economic Analysis, where, as you can see, we have tremendous data that this is a free country, democratic nation, and it's available to researcher. This is the internet, this is global economy. So therefore, here when it comes to, as you can see here from, we rank, the B, not the BA, the Bureau of Economic Analysis, ranked this is the foreign direct investments in the US. So I will be working with the esteemed Professor Dr. Lata about hopefully we can get similar. I'm sure that there are tremendous of data also in India. There are different resources that we can explore in terms of the ranking of the trend, and also, as you can see here in the case of the US, we can see the most important countries. You have the total, and then you have the like Canada is at the top, and then you have the European Union. As you can see here, you can see the Asian Pacific. When we talk about region, you have Australia, you have China, Hong Kong, India, Japan, Malaysia, New Zealand, Singapore, South Korea, Taiwan, etc., and others. So this is from 2008 and all the way down 2019. What I did in this for to simplify this is in million of US dollars. And so we have the countries, all countries. We have Canada, for instance, like Canada here is 34,167 million of US dollar. The European Union, as you can see, is the highest portion here, 118,873. And going back down here to the Asian Pacific, so they classify by region. You can see a classification by region. So why this is important in terms of strategy? Think of yourself, ladies and gentlemen. You are right now asked by an expert from the trade department or from the investment department to say, you know what, we need some recommendations. Well, it's very important to ask the following question. Okay, like in the case of the US, if I'm asked what are the main foreign direct investing countries in the US, clearly from this you can see Canada, you can see the European Union. If I'm asked also what are the regions that we should probably target in order to incite, for instance, more Africans. There are many countries that are growing fast now in Africa, like South Africa. How can we incite more South Africans to invest in the US, for instance? How can we incite more of the United Arab Emirates, as you can see with the negative number here? So this is very important in terms of policy to say, okay, what is the is like, think of this as like in business when you have different segments, different customers in a way, and you say, you know what, how can we really incite this region to buy more? It's not about buying here. I'm just making this as a metaphor, right? So in India, let's say India, it is in yellow here. And you can see that it's kind of in between, but not. But again, this is in terms of the income without current cost adjustments. So what we mean by that? So when foreign direct investment, when I invest, let's say I do have a company. I mean, I decide to invest in India. So when I invest in India, I do get the income of my investment. Because when I invest, I do there's net income, right? There's net income, and I pay taxes. I mean, depending about that's another subject, probably for another session or another time. In terms of you know, because we want to avoid double taxation. If I am in India, I don't want to be paying taxes here and paying taxes over there. If I'm paying tax, you know, to avoid double taxation, that's another topic. But the bottom line is, once you have the net income, once you pay taxes, once I mean, that's the net income. What companies can do with the profit? Let me call it a profit. I mean, they may grow the business more in India. They may pay, if there are some form of financing, they may pay banks, or they may pay dividends, or they may just, I mean, if you are a businessman, businesswoman in a foreign nation, you may decide to repatriation of the income. The money end up being repatriated back to my bank in my originating country, right? The US, for instance. And that's income. There's another aspect when it comes to the capital. Sometimes, for some reasons, the investors may decide to just sell everything. So also we can talk about the repatriation of the whole capital. Once everything gets sold, we sold everything, and then, you know, it is about repatriation of the cash flow. That said, it is question. So that's net income, but also position on historical cost basis. So so we will, like in case of the US, we will say, okay, what can be done here to encourage more foreign investors, Indians, to invest here in the. I can see that many Indians, they are in. I can see some of them in gas stations, also in the hotel industry. But I mean, from this point of view, what can be done to attract in terms of develop more strategic partnerships with the Indian investors? I mean, that's the same analogy that's approached, and we'll be discussing this with Dr. Lata in terms of looking into the distribution per countries. Then we will, once we focus on the US, I mean, what is the potential? We can look into the trend analysis, and industry analysis, and also gathering important elements with respect to this data. Now, I'm gonna just please note that when we talk about the historical cost, I know this is a business class or business, excuse me, college. I apologize. And when it comes to here in the U.S., we have the accounting system where the asset is recorded at its historical value, not the market value. I don't want to get into corporate finance, and of course, there's difference between intrinsic value, right, and the market value. So the bottom line, data, it's a lot of data, but often it is about the methodology and how it's very important to not try to be comprehensive. If this is my advice for students, it's to be often you can tackle this. It doesn't have to be for the whole, even the economy, industries. I mean, you can tackle, for example, in India, for example, in the education, private education area, for instance, what can be done to attract more branches? I mean, I have to probably read more about the policies and the in India with respect to private education and how to what extent it's more open to also to foreign schools. And why it's important, because it has of course there are many important and essential strategic and important schools in India. Indian schools, they are ranked, they are known at the global level for sure. I mean, but in the meantime, this aspect of international cooperation in the area of quality assurance, in the area of accreditation, in the area of program development, and by the end of the day, we live in a global village, and textbooks, definitely there is the cultural dimension, but often when it comes to the concept, the technicalities, the quantitative approaches is the same, is all of the same, you know, and the standards and the requirements. That said, I think that this is a very important topic for research. I wanted just to add, to move here before I open the room for questions. I mean, I would, if I had more time, I could structure this, and of course, me and Dr. Lata, in a way, we work this to somehow a little bit of a short notice. But I'd be very happy to, you know, to put this together in a slide or a PPT or something like that. But I'm glad that we'll be working, me and Dr. Lata, in terms of developing this, and hopefully we can have some students joining us in this endeavor in terms of data collection, and together we do better, right? Teamwork, and I'm glad to be here today. Now, let's talk about the determinants. What are the determinants of the foreign direct investment? I'm not sure if this is you want me to finish with this and then open up the room for questions, or we can open the room for questions now. But I would say, let me finish, then we can open the room for questions for students. Now, in general, when it comes to FDI inflows in India, they are in general or significantly determined by the expected national income. That's the reason why, remember, ladies and gentlemen, why I showed the World Bank. You see that trend of the GDP or national income. Of course, there's a relation between GDP and national income, right? And national income is so important. Think of this as like how much, I mean, the trend, the change of national income, because when there is a higher national income, what happens to the national income? I mean, when the national income, you may see an improvement of consumption, right? You may see improvements of investments. It's good news for the market, because for the foreign direct investments, because by the end of the day, it is a project, and you need to ensure that there is an expected return, right? So people, they can buy, and definitely in India, if you look at the change of the improvements of the work labor conditions, and also the improvements of consumption patterns. So it is important. So it's something important in the case of tax rates. It's an important element when it comes to the impact on foreign direct investment in India. Trade openness and labor cost. I know that India, it's a country with a tremendous history. It's a beautiful country, but also it's a nation that tried for many years some form of what we call to a strategy focused on the substitution of import substitution. So it is a country that put a lot of effort in terms of the development infrastructures, but also to in the field of irrigation, agriculture. I mean, it's cited in different occasions as the achievement in this regard. But in terms of export, it's why I mentioned export strategy here. It's something that one can look into this, because export strategy and because trade policy, we talk about trade openness. When we talk about trade openness, we are in the heart of the tariff policies, and of course we don't talk of, I mean, almost we never talk anymore, or we don't talk the debates about quota almost disappeared, but the tariffs are always there, used by many countries, including the United States. As you may know, the negotiation between the United States of America and China with respect to trade, right? So trade openness, that has a country that is more open, this idea of causality between more openness and more that can lead to attract more foreign direct investment. Labor cost, and here when we talk about labor cost, you have labor speaking English, fluent in English, but also skilled. I'm not talking here about just, I mean, we are a different cycle here. We are not talking about industries that are just intensive or unskilled worker. I'm not talking about here. So even more highly intensive or technology intensive industries, you have labor that are skilled. And now the question is, in terms of determinants, it is okay. What is it is a competition going on. So because remember the list I show of Singapore or neighboring countries, China or other countries. So to what extent, for a foreign direct investor is how can a foreign direct investor in general paying more? I mean, somehow, because wage is also part of cost, right? Lower wage, but in the meantime ensuring some form of potential marginal productivity of wage. Now, I don't want students to think that the goal of foreign direct investment is always to pay a lower wage. In many instances, you may have foreign direct investors paying even higher wages compared to what could be paid in the United States or in England or in France, but it could be paid less compared to England and less to United States, the average wage, but probably it's a higher wage based on what is paid in the industry in India. I'm just announcing this. I'm gonna still have to match this with data and the facts, but I'm trying just to make the point here of how wage and skilled. So we are looking for not for the cost pattern of wage, but also skilled. I mean, and multitasking and people, because when we talk now about nanotechnology and machine learning, and also about how can you do this relation between labor and capital and technology to promote efficiency, but also effectiveness. That has also in the heart of innovation. So therefore, some companies, they may even pay higher wage to motivate workers, depending. So that said, what are other determinants of foreign direct investments? Well, me and Dr. Lata, potentially, hopefully, we're gonna look into, for instance, the real interest rates in India, because I'm talking about the cost of investment. The expected rate of return per industry in India, for instance. We can look into the stock market return. We can look into the stock market return and risk. Easiness of business. What does mean by easiness of business? I was born in Morocco, and it's a beautiful nation. Egypt is a beautiful nation too. And these countries, they have a lot of history. But the problem is, as a foreign direct investment, time means money. Time is money. So if I get to a process where people, it's an endless process of bureaucracy. In Morocco, That's a problem that's still there. It's a beautiful country, but I think that lots of things should be done in terms of politically to ensure that there is less time when it comes to the process of launching new business by foreign direct investors. So we will ask the same question about the dynamic or the problem or the issue of bureaucracy. Of course, when it comes to the governments, we cannot look at the government's functioning as like private company, because of course there are many layers. Decision making is different, but at least how can we get close to where marginal benefits getting closer and closer to marginal cost? So the idea is the easiness of business, governance system, the legal law, the laws, the regulations, in case of litigation, I don't know if because I don't see. Okay, the litigation, the issue when it comes to I will talk about the court system functioning and the governance system, right? The bureaucracy and transparency, business law and property rights. These are like in some countries. I mean, I worked I served as a consultant in strategic planning, and also I worked as a head of management department, and I was involved in accreditation and quality assurance in a beautiful country of Saudi Arabia. So I mean, at that time, I don't know about now, a foreign direct investor cannot own land in Saudi Arabia, for instance. So this kind of so what can be done also when it comes to the laws and regulations, when it comes to the process of to insight. So it's not just the markets, it's not just the markets, but also the institutions. Dr. Lata, I don't see you anymore, but I am and the professor, I don't see professor, but I believe that I did not lose the connection, right?
We are all here. So we are all here. I'm not sure, Dr. Lata. I'll just check once.
Okay,
but
excellent.
The team is here. Oh, Dr. Lata has lost her connection. Dr. Lata, are you there? I believe she is. Anyway, so you may kindly continue because things are fine. She is back.
All right. So I mean, I'm gonna just you know, like I said, this is a project of research. For me, it is an honor to be here today because we talked, we discussed. This is a very, very important topic. We live in a global, in a course of economics of globalization. I'm teaching right now at SUNY New Paltz, a class of economics of globalization. And we can imagine how the world is too small. I mean, we are right now, you're in India and I'm in New York, and we're having this wonderful conversation about foreign direct investment. And if there is progress in terms of sustainable development, if there is new innovation of India, not only the Indian economy will benefit from it, but many other countries will benefit from it. It's this multiplier effect. This innovation in the U.S. has a positive impact also in many other countries. The world is better off with democracies. Exactly like the one of our leading nation, the United States of America, and also India as a democracy in the region. The world is better off with democracy. Why democracy is so important? Because that's part of the evaluation of foreign direct investors. When it comes to invest overseas, the investor will say, okay, how is the political stability? Oppressed population, for instance, or a situation when population is oppressed, when there's no democracy, in some dictatorships. I would cite here the example, with all the respect to all peoples. I'm not talking about peoples, I'm talking about political regimes like North Korea, for instance. That regime, I mean, you see, so when it comes to the democracy, when there is democracy, it's a strength, I think, like in the case of India, a democracy, a strength in terms of attracting foreign direct investment. In terms of decision making, when you have a democratic debate, is to say, okay, what are the effective laws and regulations with respect to foreign investment? What can be improved through debate in such a democracy like India, when people from different regions, they get to debate in parliament to improve things. So I wish you all the best, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm glad to be here today. And I want to just open the room here for any question and from students. I will be happy to answer.
Okay, so sir, I believe it will better if I take the questions. There is a question from Mr. Kausar Day. So the question reads, as you know, a huge majority of the countries use the US dollar as their reserve currency. So, do you think that America's debt-based and centralized economic system is long-term sustainable? And what could be the possible impact if the world loses its faith in the US dollar?
Okay. All right. That's really a long question, but it's an important question one, and it's not really. I mean, it's not really specific to the topic. However, I will be very happy to answer that question. America, United States of America, is not surprising why many people they continue to come as to do their PhD in the US and to dream to stay and to evolve and to benefit from the research centers and to become, I mean, part a productive person in society. There are a lot of strengths. The schools, the education system, the market. If you can just look into the level of capitalization of the stock market, for instance, and you can look at the infrastructure, the flow also of portfolio investments when bad news in the globally happens, when the people, I mean, investors find the refuge is here in the US. And that's not just a talk, it is we can walk the talk when it comes to assessing the data of what's happened even with the pandemic or after the Great Recession. So there are a lot of like I said, in terms of creativity and in terms of innovation. Of course, there's competition going on and economically, even between multinational companies, US versus China. So there are strengths. You have the market, you have tradition of the market economy, you have the governance system, you have the e-government, you have the check and balances. I don't believe nowhere in this globe we can talk about perfection. There are always rooms for improvement. Only God is perfect for a believer of God, of course. I respect people with religion and people without religion, but the idea is we struggle always to improve things. So there are strengths, but also there are some the problems that need to be addressed. And this has to do with the US dollar. One key issue that needs really to be addressed is the budget deficit. That may have in the long run problems on the solvency or sustainability of the US dollar. The other aspect is the trade deficit. The good news is the the United States GDP depends mainly on consumption and private investment and government spending, to a lesser extent of net export, which I mean, that's why we are not tightly affected by the deficits of the trade. But as an economist, I do believe that there is a need to tackle the deficits of trade. Number one, we learned a lot from the pandemic. I had a webinar with some colleagues from India and from other places, countries, and also from India. It was in the summertime. There is a need. I mean, even for Indian business, from the Indian business perspective, the need to reduce the dependency vis-a-vis China import. I mean, China is a great nation. I'm not talking about the civilization or anything like that. I'm talking about dependence and the supply chain here. Yeah, and with this pandemic and with the lack of transparency of the Chinese government, and you know the rest of the story. I'm not in terms of what's happened to the world with this pandemic. I mean, so this is, and with respect, there is a need to reduce the deficit in terms of diversifying our trade partners, and also being more innovative in terms of trade policy. And Africa also is a potential, India and other countries, to increase export. And that has an impact on the US dollar, you see. Now, also, when it comes to the budget deficit, I think there is a need for a comprehensive tax reform, and to ensure that, you know, because even when there is a good news in the economy, because of sometimes short-term political objectives, we often end up really not really dealing with the hiring taxes and reducing spending. So these are two elements. That said, the US dollar as a reserve is by far the most used reserve currency compared to the euro. I mean, if you go to the euro region, the European, they have their own challenges. The Greece problem, you know the story of the Greece, but now with the Brexit, we don't know really when the euro is heading. Is it going? We wish them all the best. Are they heading for more integration or disintegration? So what is the substitute to the US dollar? By far, the US dollar continue to be an important in terms of oil. In terms of oil, when it's export, we use US dollar. Even in China, when it comes to official data in China, economy number 2, they use their statistics, the US dollar. Now, from exchange rates policy, you can, for a nation, they can opt if they want from a basket of goods. There are countries they have a basket of goods. They don't just have a parity of US dollar and I don't know, in Ruby in India, do you have like, how is the regime in India, Dr. Lata? Is it like a floating regime or a basket of goods in India? I have to find out. But the bottom line is countries, they don't have to, or even when it comes to exchange policy, they may opt for this is a free country. I mean, this is we freedom and global economy for a central bank to choose its own regime. But the thing is, as an export, just asking this question, I mean, do you want to get paid in US dollars or you want to get paid? What is the competitive currency so far? Okay, there is two different things in economics. There is how the world should be in terms of we dream, for example, of an international common currency or a currency with no risk. That's, I would say, a job of normative economics or some even utopic economics. But positive economics, look into the data, by far the US dollar continue to be used mainly in terms of export and also in terms of investment. You have look at just the flow of portfolio investment. The United States by far is the number one destination. This is a long answer, but we can talk for a day about this. It's a very important question. Any other questions, gentlemen?
Yeah, sir. There are one or two more questions from Professor Shatabdi Basu. She asks, is there any cap in the percentage of FDI that should be applicable in any sector to avoid foreign monopoly in any country?
Okay, excellent question. I think that when it comes to the policy of a nation, it is about what is our goal as a nation. For like here in the US, our great nation has objectives in terms of education, objectives in terms of health, objectives in terms of growth in the economy. But of course, there is diplomacy, and there are problems that require international cooperation. When you talk about sustainable development, it's the country and the rest of the world, right? Through a cooperative approach, hopefully. So, in terms of policies within India, depending on what are the strategic goals, in general, I would say depending on the sector and the importance of the sector. Because if I am in the food industry, for instance, I am not like investing, for instance, in I would say computer science or some high tech or some depends. Now we are an open nation. Okay, why it's open? Because I can notice that. So in terms of access to data, I mean, in terms of access to information, and everything is in terms of comparative approach. So even the nature of society when it comes to coming here and going to school and doing a research paper, I think that openness and transparency is so important when it comes to economics. Of course, there is always the international security of every nation. Our nation, of course, considers international security in sensitive areas. It's not just we're gonna just, for example, for a latest debate between United States, not debate, it was a question of the 5G, the Chinese 5G. Okay, so I mean, if you are dealing with democracy like India, with all the respect, democracy like India, And also, if I'm dealing with the regime that's, I mean, whereas there is a high monopoly or some form of autocracy or a lack of democracy, so you got to look into the international threats of when it comes to who does what, who, you see, what are the motives. So the motives when it comes to the foreign direct investment, I would say every nation has its own policy. And of course, every nation has to respect, of course, the specifics. It's very important in negotiation between nations, the respect of the culture, respect of the policies, respect, as long as, you know, we are singing the same song, you know, because if we believe in democracy, we believe in democracy, you see. So now about the COP, in general, there are some examples from the history, like South Korea, for instance. They developed what we call joint ventures, whereas, for example, there is 33%, 33%, 33%. This way, there is always some form of presence of the local investors, right? Or this way, you know, they are part of decision making. So again, it's depend on the strategy and depend also on the dynamics and the negotiation. And so COP, it's not like about, I mean, it's okay, what are the goals of the policy, what is the strategy achieved, and from there, I think through a democratic discourse and clarity and transparency, I think that's when a nation like India, United States, they both agree about the importance of peace and the importance of tolerance, the importance of freedom, the importance of democracy. These two nations, they have the potential, I think, that's my opinion, to develop more cooperations in the future.
Okay, sir. So there are a few more questions. So I'm sure, sir, we can have, you are not falling short of time. So should I go ahead with the next question?
Yes, please, no problem. I'll take this question.
So
sure.
The question from Professor Manisha Singh: after pandemic, in which sectors will the FDI be directed in developing countries, or even in countries of transition?
I wish this professor can join me and join Dr. Lata in the research paper, because this is number one, we don't have enough background because we are still living the pandemic, right? And we need to have a collection of data. And the pandemic, there's some bad news and good news. Bad news is the loss of many people very sadly died because of the pandemic, right? And good news is our nation, the United States, is one of the leading nations in terms of innovating and coming up with the vaccine. And many countries, there is now starting giving the vaccine. So we hope that hopefully I pray that this will be you know, in history soon. But in terms of the effect, the good news of the pandemic, it's many sectors, this innovation in the supply chain due to the pandemic. I mean, people going online to study, people going online to even redesign the business plan of many colleges. For instance, since this we are talking here today in college, many colleges said, you know what, let's redesign, for example, the way we're gonna and even some teachers, for instance, I mean, or some students, they say, wait a minute, I really like the face-to-face. That's good news. But because of the pandemic, many students will say, you know what, I really need to see how this Blackboard things works, or this technology works. So therefore, there is also an opportunity for new segments, new technology, and for the things that will redesign the supply chain. Now, the question that was asked by the professor about the developing nations, I think any research about developing nations has to ask the question, what type of developing nations? Because there is a typology, there is different type of developing nation. India is a developing nation, but we cannot, for example, put, with all the respect to all nations, of course, we cannot, for example, compare the fundamentals, economic fundamentals of India with the, for example, Guinea in Africa, or Burkina Faso. Beautiful African nations, but we are not talking the same here. We are not talking, because you don't want to put, you know, see. So depending on what type of region of developing nations. For example, if you are in India, you want to take India and similar nations, China, some, and look into what is the effect of this pandemic about new innovation taking place, entrepreneurship, how this is, what are the new type of investment taking place. Also, what are businesses and industries, the industries that are dying because of the pandemic. You see that? So again, it's something that's it's very difficult to say this will be the effect, because depending on what type of developing nation. That's number one. Number two is how is the reaction, the policy, because how countries react to the pandemic. In the heart of all of this, science is so important. A country does not want to be forever a receiver, a buyer of technology, of medical material, for instance. And the learning about fighting the pandemic, this type of pandemic, I think that is very important for a developing nation to say, you know what, it is important also to get more and more from the budget to finance research development in this type of pandemic. So a question is, the future of any developing nations depend on investments on science and technology. I mean, that's a short answer.
Okay,
thank you, Professor.
So, yeah. So, sir, Dr. Jatin Pancholi says one thing, comments something, and then also asks a question. He asks, Brexit will be a great challenge globally. Brexit, okay. And he asks, what are your observations on FDI from tax haven countries such as Luxembourg or Panama?
Quite honestly, I'm going to have to look into the data, recent data about Panama and Luxembourg. The Luxembourg is a small, tiny nation in Europe, and there's also Panama. I don't have right now the data on, off the top of my mind, but it's really a good question. I mean, the objective, I think, for relevance for with me and Dr. Lata, that we wanted to focus more and more on India. But it's a good question. These are tiny economies. A comparative approach, for instance, would be what Panama versus Luxembourg are doing. How much is Panama, what is the FDI in terms of percentage in Panama versus Luxembourg? Do you remember that data that I showed? And if there are more FDI in Panama or the opposite in Luxembourg. Luxembourg is like Switzerland, I would say. It's not like, but it's small, but you would see here to what extent financing and banking is very important in Luxembourg, you see. Because Bahamas, people go to Bahamas to have a good time because of the sun. It depends on the structure of the economy. So the policy, we don't expect the policy to be the same, because a country highly concentrating on banking and finance is not like a country that's depending on the economic structure. But that's a really good question, but I don't have the data, or I did not study this before, sir. No.
Okay, sir. So Mr. Deepak Sharma, he asks, sir, what are the implications of inviting FDI for developing economies?
Well, there are many applications. That's what we will hopefully generate. Now, the implications is, if, for example, if I think of a worker that's always, I'm going to give just simple example. If a worker has been working under the management for 20 years, under the same type of management, for example, US management or Japanese management or Indian management style. If this person, you have a new company, multinational companies, probably you're going to have a new manager or new supervisor coming from a different country with different management style. So why this is important? Because the worker in India will be exposed to two different methods of management, different approach. And why this is important? Because if we think of Indian companies growing, the scope, they may decide one day to even go global. Going global involves the importance of diversity and the importance to learn different management styles and also leadership styles, but also in technology. This is an engineering college, right? Management and engineering. Even when it comes to engineering, you know, when you have a team with the scientists from India, and you have scientists from Japan, scientists from America, I mean, they went to different schools. They may, so this dynamic of diversity from people from different places, it's always positive. That's not me, that's management science has shown that in terms of the impact on teams. And that's process. So a new Japanese or you Americans in India, oh, wait a minute, that's really good practice in the Indian enterprise. Let me try this back home. And also, the Indian will find out, for example, that the process was lacking a Six Sigma method, or they may need to improve specific aspects of quality management. So this dynamic of strategic partnership, specifically in the global world, if I was close in my city and my state, I sell to my own people. I mean, well, even if I'm selling to my just to Indian customers, India is a free democracy. I mean, people now they can go online, they can buy through Amazon. So the improvements of the business plan, the improvements of marketing style, of everything requires that we are dealing with the knowledge that comes from a variety of sources. So I think that the effect, it's specifically when it comes to FDI, it's not a speculative investment. We're talking about knowledge. We are talking about strategic partnerships. And again, throughout, okay, every FDI has to go through a negotiation process. If someone want to come from any place in the world and want to come to United States in order to, it has to be a negotiation in terms of what are the goals of the FDI. I mean, okay, in some places, like in Algeria, for instance, a very nice country at North Africa. For many years, they were under the umbrella of the Soviet Union. And then what happened with the decline, with the end of the Soviet Union, Algeria realized the huge gap between the Russian technology of the time and the advanced nation Western technology. This is not. I mean, I'm talking about the automobile industry. I'm talking about agricultural products. So competition between different management styles, competition between different school systems, competition between different programs lead to synergy of innovation, of improving things. But if I'm just thinking I am the best of the best, for example, I don't need no benchmarks. I'm the best. What is? I mean, it is not surprising why America become America. It's a long process of learning, of organizational behavior, where learning is so important. Learning, organization, and organizational learning. So therefore, again, through the negotiation process, the private businesses, in case of mergers or acquisitions, in case of mergers, for example, you have to look into the dynamic of the new human resource system, how it's going to adapt to the old system. Is there any resistance to change? Someone will tell you, you know what, I'm just perfect. I don't want to hear about this. You see, but how to convince people what is for me to adopt change? There's another dynamic problems. So changes, when it's positive, can have tremendous and positive impact at the business level, but also at the macroeconomic level.
Okay, sir. So the next question is from Mr. Rajat Yadav. What is the picture of a commonly used cryptocurrency instead of USD in the near future for all the trade purposes?
Gentlemen, well, I am so happy because I started feeling, because I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to prepare for my next class. I mean, but I'm gonna be very happy to provide not quick, but a short answer to this. Cryptocurrency is a lot of talk about this, but it's still new, and there is a lot of work to be done in terms of the risk. Yes, the problem of uncertainty, the problem of volatility from an investment perspective. So we don't want just a very high return and then very low return. This problem of volatility in the United States, there's a lot of talk about, because you need a market to innovate, right? But what about institutions? What about a body that's making sure things are ethical? people, they don't take advantage by even manipulating this or making, we're talking about ethical behavior for this new currency, this type of bitcoins or digital currency. So to think of magically this is gonna replace 1, 2, 3 the at least in our scope, in my lifetime. I mean, it's gonna, I don't see that as to be like substitute to the US dollar. I mean, or central banks will say, you know what, or the central bank of Malaysia will say, you know what, are we gonna reduce to zero our reserve on US dollars? Let's just put bitcoins. That's probably, maybe, but it depends on how people and policy makers, they're gonna feel safe, because there is the return aspect, but there is the safety aspect, the riskiness. So it is growing, and not only you need regulation and you need some form. I don't mean by regulation bureaucracy. What I mean is even policymakers, they need to understand the functioning and what is the technology themselves in order to come up with the law and regulation. Even policymakers, they have to understand the dynamics. And once you have that governance, that set of rules and regulation at the nationwide, between, for example, in India, in United States, in England, and then all these countries, they have to cooperate, coordinate among them to make sure that yes to financialization, yes to globalization, yes to increase of this digital currency transaction, for instance, but making sure that this is not leading to unethical behavior. So I think in the scope, in the short run or the medium term run, I mean, or even the long term, I mean, if you want to use the economics horizon, the US dollar will continue to be used as an important reserves, and also to be used as when it comes to financial, international finance, businesses, business, international business. Of course, there are many students, if they have a chance, they can explore the tools and techniques that can be used to manage exchange rate. There are plenty of methods. So the idea is, it's not about replacing, it's about comparing the riskiness, but also if you want to even look, even if a country want to move to a basket of goods as an exchange regime, for instance, you want to see what are the pros and cons of a system assessment. Okay, just critiquing one thing is easy because we're talking about the dependency vis-a-vis one currency. What about replacing the system? You have to also to assess the contingency, to assess the you know, also the limitations, but also the riskiness. So in terms of assessment, Professor, thank you very much. I'm sorry I'm gonna have to go, but that was very interesting topic today with you, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, I will just say, sir, thanks to Jagrati Bhadra, Anupama Jangir, Shayantan Bhattacharya, then these people have all asked questions which we could not put forward. And then also some other people like Kaushar De, who again asked another question, Orpon Shadhu.
I mean,
thank you for your questions.
I mean, if you want, Professor, because I don't want him to, I can give a short answer if you don't mind. You can give me the answer. I can give on the top, because these are sometimes related to today's topic that we discuss about FDI, but they may be unrelated. So I don't pretend to have solution to or answer to everything, but I will be glad, you know, to provide a short answers. You know, yeah.
So should I read out another question quickly, sir? The question
Yes,
says, what tactics does the big players like FII and DII implement so that no matter what, they are always profitable in stock market? So this is one question. Another question. So I quickly read out the questions. You can check out whether.
Okay, just briefly here for students, and so they may be eager about the. So for this is a little bit out of topic, right?
Yes,
but
yes.
I would say, gentlemen, that there are two types of strategies in the market: active strategy and passive strategy. Number one is to look into. I did not. I have to, you know, I have to look into deeply into the strategy of these two entities. But first, number one is to see if they are doing active because if they are all outperforming the markets, I would think they are doing active management. And the strategy they are doing often you want to see making sure that's all ethical. We are not talking about inside trading, right? There's lots of people, they may go to jail for trying to, you know, to use the inside trading, right? And I don't want to say a lot of people, but there are many cases that students can explore in e-library about white collar crimes. But assume that is all legitimate. I would say the importance of experience when it comes to investment. There is the systemic risk and unsystemic risk, the market risk, but also the performance, the inside of the company, and also looking into the use of technical analysis, right? Specifically in the short term. If you buy and you sell within a day, you wanna look into to what extent this entities they utilize effectively technical analysis, chartist analysis, right? Charts and technical analysis, and also fundamental analysis is so important. Often it's very important to use a coupled approach, or not just to use, for example, discounted cash flow method or an earning per share method. Is to use a variety. I mean, one or two method at least, to compare if you are heading toward the same road. Now, is that means you should invest in these entities, companies, for instance? It depends. If I have been generation returns, or these companies has been generating higher profits for the last data years, 20 years, is that certainty that for investors that they're going to make money, they're going to get a high return? Depends. I mean, past is important, but also the future can be different than what's going to happen in the future.
Sir, very quickly, I will pick up then the next question, which is a bit related. India has currently launched PLI scheme in display, computer, laptop, mobile manufacturing that would give incentives to companies who set up plant and manufacture in India. And also Tesla has registered their first office in India. Can we say that these three factors will promote new FDI?
I think this is very important. The aspect I would like to invite Dr. Lata. Probably we can take note of this event in India, and because Tesla, it's very important. This in the heart of the sustainable development, right? So electric cars and other type of technology, and these are examples of when we're going to look about the potential. We can, because when it comes to analyze FDI, you can use a quantitative method, looking into the data, as you know, Dr. Lata, right? And we can use a model to kind of forecast, or we can use a coupled method, including some qualitative. And in this context, we may talk about Tesla and what Tesla thinks about India as a potential, you see.
Okay, thank you, sir. The previous question was from Shayantan Bhattacharya. I think the other questions we may now skip, because these are basic questions. I think that can be taken over by the teachers, like why is Chinese FDI unpopular, or what are the positive and negative effects of FDI on the economy of a country. I think because there are many students also in this talk, sir, so they were also posing some basic questions. But yes, it was really a wonderful session from your side, sir, and we really gained a lot, and so many things we learned. I'm sure we will have a wonderful association. So Dr. Lata, you can kindly take over from here, as Dr. Syed was saying that he's having his next class. I request you to quickly wrap it up very quickly.
Sure, sir. Sure, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, Professor Syed Malki. It's indeed our pleasure that we have among us with you, and the presence of such eminent personality is truly a blessing for us. On behalf of School of Management and University of Engineering and Management, I would like to extend a warm vote of thanks by presenting this memento to you. And this is really a heartfelt vote of thanks to our speaker, who has taken such a wonderful session. And shockingly, there were more than 500 participants to this program, and they have benefited a lot. You were right in stating that one size does not fit in all. So definitely, when we talk about foreign direct investment, exponential growth, economic development, there are many more inputs that these participants have gained today. So yes, your valuable inputs have really enlightened our mind. We would like to go beyond this webinar to have certain MOUs signed and certain consultancy programs or certain student exchange programs with you, with your university, so that this benefit program must be extended to students at large. So I would like to extend a vote of thanks, formal vote of thanks to you, so that you could have delivered such a wonderful session to benefit our audience at a large. So yes, Professor Bishwajit Chatterjee, sir, please
thank you.
Give a
Thank you. I
memento
think we
to
can.
Professor
Yeah, thank
Malki,
you.
sir.
Yeah, we can wrap it up. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thanks,
Namaskar, sir. Namaste, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for making this as huge success. Thank you so much.